What's up YouTube, JP here. Sorry about that, just drinking some coffee. So in this video we're going to look at the Raspberry Pi 4 and the ultimate case for the Raspberry Pi 4. Now in my previous videos we looked at emulating on the Xbox Series S and X. Now while this is all good and well, you need to have those consoles first. So what if you don't actually have a console? Well, the Raspberry Pi 4 is an amazing alternative. So we're going to go through everything in this video. But before we start the video, just want to give a shout out to my channel members for their continued support. Right, on with the video. So what exactly is a Raspberry Pi? Well, the Raspberry Pi is a low-cost credit card sized computer that plugs into a monitor or TV and uses a standard keyboard and mouse. It's capable of doing everything you'd expect a desktop computer to do, from browsing the internet to playing high-definition videos, making spreadsheets and word processing, and of course playing games. So let's take a look at the specs. For the processor, we have a Broadcom BMC2111. Now this is a quad-core processor running at 1.5 GHz. For memory, you have a few options, 1, 2, 4, and they even do an 8 GB version now of LPDDR4 RAM. So for connectivity, you have a gigabit LAN port, 2 USB 3 ports, and 2 USB 2 ports. You also have wireless LAN and Bluetooth 5.0. For video output, you have 2 micro HDMI ports, and that can do 2 screens at 4K 60 FPS. And then last but not least, the sound. Obviously you can use the HDMI, but you also have a 4-pole stereo output jack. So let's take a look at the case we're going to fit this in. So this is a Nespi 4 case, specifically made for the Raspberry Pi 4. I absolutely love the way this case looks. It looks just like a mini NES. But the best thing about this case is you can fit a laptop hard drive inside it, giving you much larger storage options at a much cheaper price. So let's get the Raspberry Pi fitted. So the first step is to get the Raspberry Pi installed into this case, which shouldn't take too long. Take the top off, and as you can see here, there's quite a few things already built into the case. We have a little fan for cooling. We've got a USB cable here, which actually goes to the back plate, which goes, I don't know if you can see inside there, but that is actually a SATA hard drive connection. More on that later. Also in here, we've got the breakout board for the Ethernet, for the power. We've also got USB at the front. We've got some power and reset switches. So let's get the Raspberry Pi 4 installed. So now we've got the Raspberry Pi in the case, let's talk a little bit about storage. Because normally you would use the SD card. Now the SD card is a good option, but what if you wanted more storage but didn't want to pay a premium? For example, a 1TB SD card is quite expensive, but a 1TB hard drive, on the other hand, is not that expensive. But we don't want to be connecting an external hard drive to the USB port. It doesn't look very tidy. So what Nespi have done is they've added basically a hard disk drive slot. Now rather than just installing the hard drive into the console and screwing it in place, they've done something a little bit different. This is actually the case for the hard drive. So what you would do is you would put your hard drive in here, and then it's as simple as slotting it in and then closing the case, just like you would with an old NES installing a game. So let's get that set up now. Here we have a 1TB hard drive by Seagate. Now this is called a super slim. So not all laptop 2.5-inch hard drives will work in this case. It has to be a super slim. Now they recommend an SSD, and I would recommend an SSD. But as I have a 1TB SSHD, which is what this is called, super slim hard drive, I'm going to use that in here instead, because otherwise I don't really know what I would use this for. So now the hard drive will slot in and you should hear a click. There we go. That is basically all you need to do to put this together. Now, to put the operating system, stroke software, ROMs, etc. onto the hard drive, you'll need to connect it to a computer. So to install the software on the hard drive, you'll need one of these. It's basically a USB 3 to SATA hard drive connection. This only works with laptop SSDs and hard drives. It won't work on a 3.5-inch hard drive because it needs more power to spin the hard drive up. But it's absolutely perfect for these. So let's jump over to the PC and have a look to see how we set that up. So jump onto your web browser and search for Raspberry Pi image tool, or just click on the link in the description. Then click on download for Windows, or if you're on a Mac, you can click the link just below that. Now the reason why we want to use this instead of say Etcher or Disk Image Tool is because the Raspberry Pi Image Tool actually sets the drive up to be a boot OS. So the Raspberry Pi knows to boot from that storage media. So the software itself is really easy to use. You select your image, you select your destination drive, and then you click write. I don't know what you're thinking. Has he missed a step? He hasn't mentioned this image. What is it? Well, unfortunately, the image itself is a bit of a grey area. It does contain the operating system for the Raspberry Pi, but it also contains ROMs, games, BIOS files, etc. So as you know, with copyright, I can't really say where I got this from. But I guess if you joined the Discord server and someone else told you, well, nothing to do with me. So let's speed the video up while we're watching it install the image. Now this can take 10 minutes to a couple of hours depending on how big the image is and obviously how big the hard drive is that you're sending that image across to. Right, so now that's done, we're pretty much there. All we need to do is pop that hard drive into the Raspberry Pi and turn it all on. So let's jump over to the capture card and have a look to see what that looks like. Now as we can see, it's actually running Emulation Station on the back end. Now that's no surprise because most of Raspberry Pis that are running emulation default to Emulation Station. It's fast, reliable, and you don't really get that much issues with it. Now as we can see, it's loading system configurations, and I must admit this is a 1 terabyte image. So now we can see it's loading all the games, and there is a lot of games. In fact, across all the systems, there's over 20,000 games. That'll keep you busy for some time. So let's have a flick through some of the systems. So obviously you can see we've got quite a few collections here where they try and group the same games together. But you'll also see that we have other things like web browsers, Kodi, and then we get into the systems. There's just absolutely loads of systems here. Now, I couldn't possibly go through every game on every system, but let's jump into one of the systems and have a look to see what the games look like. So let's scroll down here and, oh, Dreamcast. So we're going to Dreamcast, and as you can see, it has the box art, like a screenshot, and it also plays a little video, and this is already on the image. So let's have a look to see what Dreamcast games we've got. Oh, I really love Capcom vs SNK, so let's give that one a go. Now, doesn't that bring back memories? Every console has its own little video animation and then its own little sound effects. Classic.
Capcom versus...
So I'm going to end the video here. We don't need to look at a load of gameplay footage on this. This video is already 10 minutes long. But I do want to say, if you enjoy my content, subscribe, like, and please consider joining by becoming a member. When we reach 5,000 subscribers, I'll be giving away a PlayStation 5 disc edition. So, I'm JP, you've been watching Alien Retro Gaming, and I'll catch you in the next one.